Shabbat Shalom, everybody. We are in Purim. Purim is right now. And I have a sweet little teaching today from Tetzaveh, from the Torah portion Tetzaveh, which is right after Terumah. Terumah is the lifted up offering given to God that Israel gave in order to build the tabernacle, and all that gold and silver and clothing and garments and all the things that were given by the Gentiles, by Egypt, to Israel, and they used all that stuff to build God a dwelling place so he can dwell inside of them. Va'asu li mikdash v'shachanti betocham. Build for me a resting place, build for me a tabernacle, a sanctuary, so that I can dwell in them. In Hebrew, it is just completely weird, makes no sense. English, it doesn't make a whole lot of sense either. But build for me a literal building so that I can dwell in people. And that's the whole point of it. The whole purpose of it is for personal relationship with God. So today we're coming to the next Torah portion after that, which is a restatement of all of the shopping list of stuff and all the things that were made to build the tabernacle. And we're going to look at one little sliver of that. We're only going to look at one thing, which is called the Beged Shesh, which means the garments of 6, or the garments of linen. And this is in Exodus 28, 1 through 5. And these are the garments that were created for Aharon, the high priest, and his 4 children, the priests, and then all their generations afterwards. So these are the garments of the priesthood. Then bring forward to yourself your brother Aharon and his sons with him from among the sons of Israel to serve as Cohen, or priests to me. Aharon, Nadav, and Abihu, Eleazar, and Itamar. This is Aharon and his 4 sons. And you shall make holy garments for Aharon, your brother, and here's the purpose of it: for glory, kavod, and for beauty, yafeh. You shall speak to all the wise-hearted. Now in Hebrew it says ruach lev, wisdom in the heart. And this is really important because I'm an artist, been an artist my whole adult life, and I teach art in school, and I believe that all creativity is the outworking. It's like the flow of the wise heart. The reason I believe that is because of what it says here. It says, bring all those who have ruach lev, the spirit in their heart, ruach lev, spirit in heart is what it really is, whom I have endowed with the ruach chokhmah, the spirit of wisdom. So it's not really, wise-hearted is not really a good translation. It's actually spirit heart. Those with the spirit in their heart. Well, what spirit? Those who have given the spirit of wisdom, the ruach chokhmah. So it is wise-hearted, but only because they have the spirit of wisdom, ruach chokhmah. And what do? They do art. So in Israel, back in the early, I believe it was the 1920s, in Israel, they started a school called Bezalel Academy of Art and Design. Bezalel is the guy who did all the artwork and the construction and the design of the tabernacle. He's the one who built it. He was the overseer who did all the design work and built it. Why? Because in his heart was ruach chokhmah, a spirit of wisdom. So if you want a spirit of wisdom, it's going to have its manifestation, its outgrowth in some sort of creative endeavor for God. That they make Aharon's garments to consecrate him, that he may serve as Cohen to me. These are the garments which they shall make. Number 1, a breastpiece. It's not breastplate. There's no metal involved in it, except for the tiny little threads of gold that are woven into the linen. It's not a metal like a breastplate on a Torah scroll, which is made out of silver. A breastpiece, which is choshen in Hebrew. Number 2, an ephod. They don't even translate it into anything else. It's just called an ephod. That's Hebrew. An ephod. Number 3, a robe, which in Hebrew is me'il. Number 4, a tunic, katonet, of checkered work. And then it says, mount up a turban. Mount up a mitznefet, a turban. Turban is number 5. And then, number 6, a sash, an avnet. Don't picture a little, like a belt. This is like a long, 30-yard long thing that went around and around and around the waist. An avnet. They shall make holy garments for your brother Aharon and his sons. Why? So that he may serve as Cohen to me. I mean, that's strange to me. Maybe you read that and it's like, okay, that makes sense. That makes no sense to me. They have to have the garments made, so they have to put the garments on so that they can be priests to me. In other words, if they don't have the garments, if they don't wear the garments, they can't be Cohen. Well, that's important, and you'll see why. So that he can serve as priest to me. They shall take the gold, the blue, the purple, the scarlet, and the fine linen. And those are the 5 elements that the garments are made out of. Now remember, this is all a picture of heavenly things. So before we examine the garments of the priests, and the garments of the high priest in particular, I want to talk about one thing, and that is the name of the Torah portion. There are 3 Torah portions with the word tzav in it. It's like they'll translate it and command, and I command. I can't even think like this anymore. Command them to bring to me the stuff in order to make the garments. It does not say that. It's the word tzav, Tetzaveh, and you shall. It's the word establish or set up. And you shall establish, not you shall command. Now there are 3 Torah portions with the word tzav in it. This is one of them. This is the first one, Tetzaveh. Exodus 27:20 through 30:10. Tetzaveh, you can see it there in the Hebrew. The tzadi and the vav are the middle 2 letters are the word tzav. Now there is a Torah portion just called tzav in Leviticus 6:1 through 8:36, and I went through an amazing teaching on this amazing word tzav, which does not in any way, shape, or form mean command. It does not mean command. And in fact, some of the rabbis in the mystical books say to obey a command is idolatry. And it was an amazing teaching. I would highly recommend that you go look at it. It's from Torah portion last year from Tzav. And then there's another one in Deuteronomy called Nitzabim, and you can see that Nitzabim is spelled slightly different. It's not Sadi Vav, it's Sadi Bet. But it sounds the same, Tzav. Sounds exactly the same. Now in Hebrew, you can interchange letters because there are, I believe, 5 letters that have 2 letters that sound exactly the same, like a bet and a vet, like a kaf and a chaf, like a chet and a chaf. And there are other letters that sound exactly the same. So many times the Bible will interchange these letters, and it totally changes the meaning, or it's exactly the same meaning. Now in this case, it's exactly the same meaning, tzav and tzav. Now Nitzabim, it's a primitive root, tzavav, means to station, appointed, erect, to erect, bring something erect, set up or establish, is tzav in Hebrew. And they mean the same thing, upright, set up, literally set up, just like tzav. Same word, same meaning. Set up, pillar, present, rear up. Now, here I have the Jusinius for tzavah, which is where the word tzav comes from. And it means literally to set up. That's all it means. And then he starts giving his description of it here, to constitute, to appoint. Well, that is exactly what tzavav means. Netzav means to constitute or appoint anyone over a thing, and then it starts kind of losing its meaning. Jusinius begins to go off the track and put in there what the common Christian culture believed, which is command. No such thing. It is so far from command because it's just set up or established. That's all it is. All right, so I would highly recommend you get that teaching Tzav If you haven't seen it, haven't heard it, you need to, because it is one of the most important things I've ever taught, and it is one of the biggest problems in both Christianity and Judaism. It gives us the totally wrong idea of our God to think that he commands and that we obey. It is totally opposite, upside down and backwards from the way God set up and established things. Set up and established things. All right, so that's about the name of the Torah portion. Now we're going to examine the Beged Shesh. And I have a sweet little teaching. It's absolutely amazing. I haven't gotten a teaching like this in many years, where I'm going to correlate something like a little shopping list from the Old Testament, from the Tanakh, with something in the New Testament. Something I never saw before. Now, the Beged Shesh, Beged means clothing, Shesh means 6, or linen. It could mean 6, or it could mean linen, same word. It says, they shall make, number 1, a choshen, a breastpiece. Number 2, an ephod, which whatever an ephod is, it's just an ephod. Number 3, a robe, which is me'il. Number 4, a tunic, which is katonet, of checkered work. And mount up, number 5, a turban, a mitznefet. And number 6, a sash, an avnet. And here's a picture, a close-up of the choshen, the breastpiece with the 12 stones set into it. They're actually called setting stones because the stones are set into a socket, which is that filigree frame around each stone. And there's 12 stones for the 12 tribes, and these are the actual colors of the stones. I did, I'd say, 3 months of research 1 year into the stones. 3 solid months of research. Because I'd seen so many things, both from Christianity and from Judaism, so I did my own research, and I really, really worked hard at it. This is as accurate as I could possibly get. I might be wrong, who knows, but this is as good as I could do, good as I could get it. So, on the left is on your left. On the left is a picture of the regular priest's garments, the white garments, Beged Shesh. And then on the right is a picture of the high priest's garments, the Beged Shesh of the high priest. And you can see it's different. You can see there's blue, and then there's like a checkered pattern, sort of. Now, it doesn't mean checkered like checkers, like black and red or black and white. It doesn't mean that. It means that it's like impressed into the linen. And so there's a pressed in place next to a raised place. Pressed in place next to a raised place. So it's a checkered pattern, actually, in the linen. And so that's what's added to the regular priest garments. They didn't have a checkered work, a katonet. So the robe in olive blue has pomegranates and bells on it. Regular priest garments doesn't have that. I believe I'm wrong. I believe that is a katonet, but it's not checkered. It's supposed to be checkered, and the artwork is not right. So they do have a katonet. I'm wrong about that. But they don't have the robe, the me'il, with the pomegranates and bells on the bottom. And that robe is olive blue. It's olive blue. Now, you can see this apron-like structure on the high priest. That's the ephod. Only the high priest wears an ephod. The regular priests do not wear an ephod. And it's on the back, and it comes up around the shoulders, and it flops down over the shoulders a little bit, and that's connected by chain to the choshen, the breastpiece. All right, so you can see the difference in the garments. We're going to look at only the high priest garments because we're going to look at the 5 colors. Now, the only thing that the regular priest has that has the 5 colors is that sash, the avnet. Like I said, the artwork is not very good for the regular priest. It's okay for the high priest. Pretty accurate. Now, in talking about the high priest, Christians immediately go to the book of Hebrews in their mind, which is great, because there's like several passages in Hebrews that say that Yeshua is our high priest. But this is a huge problem. if you don't know that Yeshua is not just from the tribe of Judah, he's also from the tribe of Levy. Now, I've written a book about this entire historical trail, genealogical historical trail in the Bible, proving that Yeshua is from the tribe of Levy. And you know what? God mixed the tribe of Judah and Levy for generations and generations and generations. It's not just one time with Yeshua. This happened. There's many, many instances in the Bible where the leader of the priest of Judah intermarried with the leader of the what did I say? The priest of Judah intermarried with the leader of the tribe of Judah with the leader of the tribe of Levy. This happens several times in the Bible throughout Jewish history and after the Bible during the time of the Maccabees. So the fact that there's a priest king is not just from Melchizedek. The priest king was a picture that God created and set up and kept in Judaism for generations, hundreds, centuries, hundreds of years, centuries. So you can find this book on my website, Michael Washer Art, under the writings section. It's called the Judah-Levy link, and it just follows that entire history of the link between Judah and Levy, proving that Yeshua was not just from Judah, so he could be, quote, our high priest, or else he couldn't be, unless that picture was in existence in Judaism, and it was. So this, to me, is very exciting, that it's not something you have to pluck out of the ether of the spirit world. This is something that God set in Judaism so we could see it and go, hey, that's Jewish. That's the right picture. All right. So let's talk about Yeshua, the high priest. There's many passages in Hebrews. By the way, they're all in Hebrews except for one in the book of Revelation. This infuriates Jewish people who don't believe in Yeshua. Infuriates them because they feel like Christians are trying to co-opt our highest, holiest guy, our high priest. God gave us the high priest. He didn't give you the high priest. This is what they think. This is what they feel. Perfectly logical to feel this way. God didn't give Christianity a high priest. He gave the Jewish people a high priest. And that's absolutely 100% accurate. Like I said, this is a Jewish thing. And you can trail it through the entire Tanakh. So, there is a Jewish high priest that's a king, Yeshua. Therefore, in all things he had to be made like his brothers so that he might become a merciful and faithful Kohen HaGadol, or Kohen Gadol. Kohen priest, Gadol high or great. Kohen Gadol. In things pertaining to God, to make propitiation, that means covering, for the sins of the people. Hebrews 3:1. Therefore, holy brothers, partakers of a heavenly calling, consider the apostle and Kohen Gadol of our confession, Yeshua. So Yeshua is not just the Kohen Gadol, he is the highest apostle. Now, apostle is not a big deal. I'm going to talk about this a little bit. The apostle is not a big thing in Judaism. In Judaism, there are many, many, many apostles. They're called shlachim. They're people that are sent out. They're just sent out ones. They're sent out from a group or an organization to go get the message of that group or organization out. That's all. And usually they are sent out to collect money for the home base, which is Judaism in Jerusalem. That's a shaliach, excuse me. Hebrews 4:14. Therefore, since we have a great Kohen Gadol who has passed through the heavens, Yeshua, the Son of God, let's hold firmly to our confession. Hebrews 5:10, being designated by God as Kohen Gadol according to the order of Melchizedek. Now, the order is a course. There are 24 courses of priests that David set up. He says, I saw this by the Spirit and I wrote it down. I saw this in heaven by the Spirit and I wrote it down. And then he set it up in Israel and he said, now Solomon, you keep this going when you build the temple. And that's what they did. But there's another order. There's actually another 24 orders. There are 24 courses in heaven which is why David put it on earth. Why? So Judaism on earth could reflect heaven. It's always the same thing. So if you've got 24 on earth, that means there were 24 in heaven. These are courses or orders. Melchizedek is only one of the courses. There's 24 of them. 2 per month in heaven. They're angels, by the way. 24 courses of angels. And so he took those 24 courses of angels and brought them down to earth and said, hey, Jews, do that, like they do in heaven. And they said, okay, we'll do that. And God said, hey, Jews, look at what you're doing. That's what heaven's like. Very simple, right? Hebrews 6:20, where Yeshua has entered as a forerunner for us. Entered what? Having become a Kohen Gadol forever according to the order of Melchizedek. So, entered what? He entered, only the Kohen Gadol is the only one who can enter into one thing that nobody else can enter into, so it's got to be talking about that, and that's the Holy of Holies, God's throne room, and it's only one time a year. It's talking about Yom Kippur, so it has to be talking about that. So we'll read it like that. Yeshua has entered into the Holy of Holies on Yom Kippur for us, as a forerunner, like before us, for us, having become a Kohen Gadol forever. So in other words, he entered in and made propitiation, covering for the sin, in the Holy of Holies, on Yom Kippur, as the high priest for us, in heaven. That's why it was done on earth. And by the way, that doesn't mean one and done. It doesn't mean, oh, the Jews did that, okay, done. We don't do that anymore. Jesus Christ did it, so now it's not done anymore. Not what it means. It means the picture was there to preach about the reality, and the picture will be there again to preach about the reality. Nothing changed. Just because the reality happened, you still need a picture to say, hey, remember what happened in the past? That's going to happen in the kingdom. Hebrews 7:26, for it was fitting for us to have such a Kohen Gadol, holy, innocent, undefiled, separated from sinners, and exalted above the heavens. All right, so Kohen Gadol, high priest. Why is he high? He's in heaven. It doesn't mean, the guy on earth is high. It means that he's a picture of the one in heaven who's high. That's why he's called the high priest. Revelation 1:12 through 13. This is during the kingdom. In verse 10, it says that John was on the Isle of Patmos, a Greek island of Patmos, and he was in the Spirit unto, it says in Greek, unto the Lord's day. Well, what's the Lord's day? Day of the Lord. So he was in the Spirit unto the day of the Lord. And then he starts describing what he saw in the day of the Lord. And the first thing he sees is all the 7 menorot, lampstands made of gold, just like the ones that were made on earth, only these are in heaven. And he hears a voice, and he turned and he saw the voice. That's weird. I turned to see the voice? I turned to see the voice? Well, that's exactly what happened on Mount Sinai. It says that they saw the kol, they saw the voice that split into 70 voices. They saw the kolot, the voices. That's what it says. And it says it twice. In Exodus 19, 20, 21, where God gives the 10 words, it says they saw the voice. Same thing happened here. I turned to see the voice that was speaking with me, and after turning, I saw 7 golden menorot, or lampstands. And in the middle, like in the midst of the menorot, one like a son of man. What does that mean, one like a son of man? That's a phrase from Daniel that's talking about the Messiah. If you believe that, but that's fine. If you don't, that's fine. All the rabbis said it was talking about the Messiah in Daniel, where Daniel chapter 7, where Daniel sees the Son of Man, and he sees the scrolls opened, plural, scrolls plural, and he sees God on the throne near the one like the Son of Man, and then it talks about Rosh Hashanah in the day of the Lord. All right, so this is a phrase just like Daniel. It's in heaven, and he sees one like the Son of Man clothed in a robe, a me'il, reaching to the feet. Now that's exactly what he's seeing. He's seeing the high priest wearing a robe that's all of blue, reaching to the feet, and wrapped around the chest. Now it's not the chest, it's the kishkis. But this is not, I mean, this is Greek. Greek would say chest. Hebrew would say gut. It would say stomach. It would say me'ah, which is heart. But it's not really heart, it's the womb, it's the guts. And so this is totally different thinking in Hebrew and Greek. In Greek, everything is, it's hard to explain. It's very kind of mashed down and the guts kind of taken out of it. But Hebrew is not like that. Hebrew is very earthy and very emotional and very, it's got the guts in it. So this is one of those instances where it goes from, here's another one, Lev, which is heart, and it'll say mind in Greek in the New Testament. Instead of heart, it'll say mind. It's another one. So Greek and Hebrew are very, very different ways to see things. But remember, this is a Jewish book given by God to the Jews, written by Jews, for Jews, in a Jewish world where they can understand the Jewish words. So this is, describing the, quote, golden sash. Now, it's not all of gold. It just has gold in it. The sash, the avnet, about 30 yards long, has gold in it, but it also has purple and blue and scarlet and the white linen. And so he sees Yeshua as the Kohen Gadol here in Revelation chapter 1. All right, so that's Yeshua the high priest. Now, there are verses that talk about, in the Tanakh, being clothed in Yeshua, clothed in Yeshua. And it's a strange concept to Jews. It's a simple concept to Christians, but they don't understand it because they don't see it from a Jewish world. They just kind of pluck it out of the Jewish world and go, oh, we're clothed with you, clothed in Jesus, clothed in Christ. Okay, but what does that mean? It's got to come from somewhere in the Tanakh. So we'll start in Galatians. It's the passage in the New Testament that talks about it. Galatians 3:27 through 28. For all of you were baptized, immersed, mikvah. This is mikvah, Jewish baptism, which, by the way, Orthodox Jews do this every single day. Rabbi Alon Anava, he's in the city of Tzfat. He's a very, very popular teacher on the internet, Rabbi Alon Anava, and he talks about this all the time. He gets up at 4 in the morning, every day, every single day, and walks down to the mikvah in the freezing cold, 4 in the morning. And he goes down to the mikvah every day, and then walks back up and does shacharit prayers. So mikvah is not like a one-time thing in Judaism. It can happen anytime. You can do this whenever we want. Whenever they went up to the temple, you had to be mikvah. You had to go in the mikvah. You couldn't set foot on the Temple Mount without going through the mikvah. And there's many, many other things like that in Judaism about mikvah. So for all of you who are mikvahed into Messiah, what does that mean? You go in mikvah in water. So in this sense, the water is a picture of Yeshua, that you go into and you die and you come back up as a new person, a totally different person. Have clothed yourselves with Messiah. What the heck is this referring to? It's talking about mikvah, and then all it says you're clothed. Clothing? Well, it could be talking about anybody going into mikvah and coming up and putting their clothes on, but it's not. It's talking about Yom Kippur, which is really the only time in the scriptures where it talks about going in the mikvah and changing your clothes. And it's only the high priest who does it, who's talking about doing this. Only the high priest is the one who goes into the mikvah and changes his clothes. I believe it's 4 times on Yom Kippur. I can't remember if that's correct or not. I believe it's 4 times. And this is described in the book of Leviticus, chapter 16, when it's talking about the ritual of Yom Kippur. So it says, all of you were immersed. You go in the mikvah, and you're covered in Messiah, the water, and you come back up, and you put the clothes on, which is Messiah. That's the high priest. It's the garments of the high priest. And that's us? We are the high priest. I thought Yeshua was the high priest. But here it's saying everybody who's immersed in Messiah is the high priest with the high priest garments. How can that be? Because Yeshua is the high priest. And we are clothed in him. But it says something else here too that I'm going to talk about, which is like really the nut of this whole teaching. And then it says another weird phrase. There's neither Jew nor Greek. Why does it say it here? There's neither Jew nor Greek, neither slave nor free, neither male or female, for you're all one in Messiah Yeshua. That's a strange place to put that, talking about going in the mikveh and coming out and putting the garments of the high priest on. There's neither male or female. There's neither Jew. So the reason this is here is because only the high priest could do this. Only from the tribe of Levy, from the house of Kahat. Only on one day, Yom Kippur. Only in the temple precincts. So this is very, very limiting who did this and when. But here it's saying that everybody is this. Everybody who goes into that mikvah of Yeshua is this. It doesn't matter if you're male or female. It doesn't matter if you're Jew or Gentile. It doesn't matter if you're a slave or free. It doesn't matter. Everybody gets to do this. Who is mikvahed in Messiah? So this is the amazing thing about this. That we're clothed in Yeshua. We are. But guess what? Yeshua, who's the real high priest, he's clothed in us. He's clothed in us. I mean, what is he wearing? He's wearing those garments. What are those garments? Those garments are us. We're clothed in him, but he's clothed in us too. This is what I'm going to talk about. We're clothed in each other. That's why the name of the teaching is Clothed in Each Other. I've never heard this taught. Maybe it has been. I don't know. I've never heard it. That Yeshua is clothed in us. I've heard that we're clothed in Yeshua, but I've never heard that he's clothed in us. I'm going to show you how. So, 1 Chronicles 15:27. This is strange. It says that David, which is a picture of the Messiah, David was clothed with a me'il of fine linen. Why is he wearing a priest's garment? Only the priest, that's the one that's blue. Only the high priest could wear this. The blue me'il. And David's the king of Israel from the tribe of Judah, and he's dressed in the me'il of fine linen, and there's more. With all the Levites who were carrying the ark, and the singers, and Hananiah, the leader of the singing with the singers. This is when they're bringing the ark up to Jerusalem, and David is leading them, dancing. He's not naked, like I've heard taught. He's wearing priest garments. And he's leading them up to take the ark into the where the temple is going to be in future. It also says David also wore an ephod of linen. Why is David wearing an ephod and a me'il? Those are two of the garments of the high priest. This is breaking the Torah, crazy breaking the Torah. He should have been stoned, but he wasn't, because he was acting out the right picture. This is a picture of the Messiah wearing the high priest's garments, who's the king of Judah. So he is not just the priest, he's the king. And he's not just the priest, he's the high priest and the king of Judah. It's a picture of Messiah. So this, I want you to see that this is Messiah is clothed in these high priestly garments, the Beged Shesh. Psalm 93:1, the Lord reigns. He is clothed. The Lord, Adonai, Yehovah, is clothed in majesty. The Lord has clothed and encircled himself with Gevurah, with strength. So these garments are a picture of the majesty and the strength of God. because that's what he's clothed in. And remember, this is all metaphorical. None of this is physical. It's all metaphor. Psalm 104:1. Lord my God, you are very great. You are clothed with splendor and majesty. So now we have him clothed with majesty, strength, and splendor. Covering yourself with light as with a cloak, a garment. This is not one of the words for the beged shesh. Covering yourself with light as with a cloak. So we have him clothed with majesty, strength, splendor, and light. Those are his clothes. That's what he clothes himself in. But how does he picture that to us? He pictures it as the beged shesh. So I'm going to show you how Yeshua is clothed with us. So, I mean, this tells me that somehow we, those who believe in Yeshua, Jew, Gentile, bond, free, male, female, doesn't matter, that we are majesty, strength, splendor, and light. But how is that pictured for us to understand it? I'm going to show you how it's pictured for us to understand it. We're clothed in each other. So before I teach about the details, the shopping list, I love that phrase, shopping list. The shopping list of the garments and how they show that we're clothed with each other. I'm going to sing a song about being clothed with the garments of Yeshua. It's called Garments of Yeshua. Majesty, you are girded with strength, you are clothed in righteousness, your holy ones give you thanks. I will greatly rejoice in the Lord, my soul exalts Elohim, clothed with garments of Yeshua, a righteous robe from my King. From my King. Your priests are clothed with righteousness, holy ones singing with joy. I want to be clothed with our dwelling on high, no time or decay can destroy. I will greatly rejoice in the Lord, my soul exalts Elohim, clothed with garments of Yeshua, a righteous robe from my King, from my King. The Lord reigns, clothed in majesty, clothed and girded himself with strength, immersed in Yeshua, clothed with Messiah. Odula Adonai, give him thanks. The Lord reigns, clothed in majesty, clothed and girded himself with strength, immersed in Yeshua, clothed with Messiah. Odula Adonai, give him thanks, give him thanks. I will greatly rejoice in the Lord, my soul exalts Elohim, clothed in garments of Yeshua, a righteous robe from my King. Oh, I will greatly rejoice in the Lord, my soul exalts Elohim, clothed in garments of Yeshua, a righteous robe from my King, from my King, from my King. Yeah. half of the story anyway. That's about us being clothed in Yeshua. It says in 1 Corinthians that we'll be clothed, we long to be clothed with our garments on high, which is our resurrected body. Well, this shows the other half. What I'm going to talk about, it shows the other half. He being clothed in us. What does that mean, that Yeshua is clothed in Israel? And by the way, this is just the tiniest tip of the iceberg. One of those concepts is the Hoshen. The high priest wears the Hoshen, which is the breastpiece with the 12 strings. Well, that's Israel. And it says that he shall carry around Israel on his heart forever. He being Yeshua. He's clothed in Israel. He's clothed in Israel. Well, this is talking about the specificity of only one part of it, and it's the garments themselves, what they're made out of. They shall take the gold, the blue, the purple, the scarlet, and the fine linen. These are the 5 garments. And what I'm going to show you is that the 5 garments correlate to the 5 gifts that God gave us, which are found all through the Torah, but they're listed and discussed in Ephesians chapter 4. So, before we read this passage in Ephesians chapter 4, I'm going to read through the passage again. We're going to read a commentary by Rashi on the passage about the gold, the blue, the purple, the crimson wool, and the twisted linen. Now, this is his commentary, Rashi's commentary on that, like how it was done, how it was constructed, how it was made. This is the kind of stuff that gets me excited, because it's art. That's why I like it. You know, this is artistic. And I want to know, how did they do this? Well, he talks about it. And by the way, he talks about it because it was written beforehand many times in different Jewish books. These 5 kinds were twisted into each thread, each and every thread. They, talking about the workers, flatten the gold into a thin plate and cut cords. It's not really cords, it's threads. Threads out of them, out of the plates, and spun them 1 thread of gold with 6 threads of blue wool. Now that makes 7 threads. You have 6 threads of blue wool with 1 thread of gold. And then 1 thread of gold with 6 threads of purple. So that's 7 threads. 6 threads of purple with 1 thread of gold. And similarly with the crimson wool, 7 threads. And similarly with the linen, 7 threads. So there's gold in all the colors. In the blue, the purple, the scarlet, and the white, there's gold. Afterwards, he would twist them all together. I'm sorry, I skipped a part here. And similarly with the crimson wool, and similarly with the linen. For the threads of all the kinds were 6-fold. That's where the word shesh comes from. Shesh, 6. So all the threads were 6-fold, and 1 thread of gold was twisted with each kind of thread. Afterwards, he would twist them all together. Thus, their threads were braided into 28 strands. Why? 7 threads times 4, times the 4 colors. This is explained in Tractate Yoma. Yoma, by the way, is Yom Kippur. Yoma is Yom Kippur. That's what the tractate is about. So why is this in Tractate Yoma? Because it's the garments of the high priest. So how do you make the garments of the high priest? And it is derived from the following verse in Exodus 39:3. They flattened out the sheets of gold, and he cut threads to work into the blue wool, into the purple wool, etc. This is from Exodus. It says it. We learn that the thread of gold was twisted with every kind of thread. Now this to me is fascinating, because remember, all of this is not physical stuff that just stays physical. It's physical stuff that's a model to look at and understand the heavens and understand Yeshua. You think you understand Yeshua? Then tell me why there's 7 threads times 4. Because if you don't know that, then there's something you're missing in your understanding of Yeshua as the high priest. And we all are missing hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of little details of this stuff until we learn it. That's why it's there. So that's why I get excited about this, because it's how art on earth, how creativity on earth shows God and Yeshua and the heavens. This is what turns me on. I don't know if you can tell by looking at my eyes, but this is what gets me excited. Now in Ephesians chapter 4, 11-13, it talks about, quote, these 5 gifts. And he gave some apostles, some prophets, some evangelists, some pastors and teachers for the equipping of the holy ones for the work of ministry, for the building up of the body of Messiah, to a mature man, to the measure of the stature which belongs to the fullness of Messiah. Now, I would strongly suggest that if you haven't heard my teachings on the counting of the Omer as it relates to the 5 gifts, you gotta hear these. You gotta see these if you don't know about this, because there's no way, it is literally impossible to understand the 5 gifts without knowing where it comes from in Judaism. It's impossible. And where it comes from in Judaism is the counting of the Omer. Now I have a book that I've written about this, another book, called The 5 Gifts and the Omer. And it too is available on Michael Washer Art under my writings. And it talks specifically about the evangelist, the pastor, the teacher, and the apostle. Sorry, the evangelist, the pastor, the prophet, the teacher, and the apostle, and how they relate to the 5 acts that are done to gather and offer the Omer during the counting of the Omer, which is a measure of flour that's offered to God. Now, this is exactly where it comes from in Judaism. It doesn't come from anywhere else. It only comes from the counting of the Omer. And there are several key words in that passage in Ephesians that Paul uses to tell us it's talking about the counting of the Omer. So, I would highly suggest you get this book if you haven't, if you don't understand, number one, what your gift is, because every believer, without exception, is one of these gifts, and only one. Only one. These are gifts. These are not offices in which you, like a job. Like you can go from job to job and do different things, but a gift is something that's given to you from before you're born, and it forms who you are. Everybody who's listening to me right now is either an evangelist, a pastor, a prophet, a teacher, or an apostle. And you must know who you are in order to do what God has put you on this planet to do. That's why he gave it to us. So, and by the way, it's all in Judaism. It's all there in Judaism to understand. So this book explains it. The teachings I give in the Counting of the Omer series from last year, from 2020, or was it 2019? I think it was 2020, where I gave the teaching. No, it was 2019. I don't know. It's either 2019 or 2020. I can't remember. 2020 is sort of a blur. You can understand why. And I gave the teachings of the 5 gifts.
You did it both years.
So I strongly suggest you look that up. It's on YouTube under the Lev Tzion station, Lev Tzion teachings. All right. So those are the 5 gifts. Now I'm going to correlate the 5 gifts with the 5 colors of the Beged Shesh. They shall take gold, blue, purple, scarlet, and fine linen. Those are the 5 colors. And he gave some apostles, prophets, evangelists, pastors, teachers. Those are the 5 gifts. I'm going to marry them. Now, by the way, I just came to me this week. I just said, well, there's 5 there. I wonder if there's 5, I wonder if somehow it correlates to the 5 gifts. Well, I'll give it a shot. And I opened up the Gesenius and I started looking at the Hebrew, and there it was. Clear as crystal. I couldn't believe it. Well, I found the first one, I was like, oh my God, that is cool. Maybe the second one will work. I went to the second one. Oh my God, it works. I went to the third one. Oh, it's so crystal clear. I went to the 4th one and the 5th one, and they all work beautifully, beautifully. Now you can believe this or not, but if you follow the meanings of the words in Hebrew, I think it's totally clear. Oh, but only if you understand what the gifts are in Hebrew. Okay? You have to understand what the gifts are in Hebrew to understand how this works. All right, the first one, gold. which, by the way, was not what I thought it was going to be. I didn't get this one at all. Zahav in Hebrew, it means to shimmer, to gleam, splendor, like splendor of the sky, like at a sunset or a sunrise. Literally what it means. Or the splendor of the sky when the sun lights up the sky somehow. That's what it's talking about. And Jusinius uses several verses to show how that word is used, zahav. The splendor of the sky, brilliant, like the sun in the sky. It could mean bright, beautiful. Now look at this. The word zeh, which is the first two letters of zahav, it's the very preceding word in the Jusinius Hebrew lexicon, right before zahav, is zeh. Well, what does zeh mean? Zeh means this. That's what zeh means. This. That's what it means. This. That. It's a pointing word, and it literally means, look, that. That's exactly what the job of one of these gifts is. Well, which one is it? Which one is like a brilliant sign and it goes, look? Which one does that? And it's the one that's interwoven in all of the colors. All of the blue and the purple and the red and the white. Which one is interwoven in all of those? It's the gospel. Now in Hebrew, gospel is besora. And one of the gifts is that word, mevaseret, which means gospel bringer. It's the evangelist. Literally, an evangelist is a billboard. And I don't mean figuratively, I mean literally. They're literally they are a billboard. They're a sign to look at. In the Hebrew, that's what they are. They're a sign. They're a brilliant, shining thing that gets your attention. Now I'm going to tell you something. Evangelists, I usually don't get along real well with evangelists because they're very surface, they're very simple. But they can talk about anything, and people are just go to Yeshua in what they say. They're just like drawn to Yeshua. They can talk about anything, it doesn't matter. Very surface things, and the anointing of the evangelist draws people to Yeshua. So, obviously, it's an incredibly important gift. Now, I'm not an evangelist. I'm like the anti-evangelist. I just don't get along with evangelists real well, usually, because they don't go very deep. And they're not driven to do something. I'm driven to do something. So, but that's another story. I'll get to that in a bit. But this is the evangelist, the gold that is interwoven in all the other colors. The gold is the evangelist, the besora, the gospel, is woven throughout all the threads of the high priest's garment. And remember, the high priest is Yeshua, and he's clothed in us. Well, how is Yeshua clothed in part of his believers? Because they're evangelists. They give the gospel. They are evangelists, and they clothe Yeshua. They're his glory, his beauty, his majesty. Now in Isaiah 40 verse 9, this is the proper way to look at an evangelist. The wrong way, and I am using the word wrong on purpose, the wrong way to look at an evangelist is Benny Hinn. What's his name? The one who recently died. The one who everybody loves and who met with presidents, Billy Graham. That's the wrong way to look at an evangelist. Because they're preaching a Hellenized, non-Jewish world message. The proper way to look at an evangelist, I'm not saying they're not evangelists, and I'm not saying they didn't do a good job. I'm just saying that that's not how God forms the picture for us. And if we think like that, we're thinking wrong. The right way to look at the evangelist is it must be Judaism. That is the thing that is calling out in the Bible, the gospel. Not Christianity, Judaism. Isaiah 40 verse 9 says this, go up on a high mountain, Zion, and it's talking about Jerusalem, Zion, bringer of the gospel. Who's the bringer of the gospel? Jerusalem, Zion. Not the church, Judaism. is the bringer of the gospel. And it literally says, Mevaseret Tzion, gospel bringer Zion. Raise your voice forcefully. And then he says it again. Jerusalem, and he calls it Jerusalem. Jerusalem, Mevaseret Tzion, bringer of the gospel, Zion. Raise it up. Don't be afraid. Say to the cities of Judah, behold your God. Zeh. There's that word. Zeh. Look. Behold. Like a billboard. And who is the gospel bringer? Judaism. Jerusalem. The sacrifices. The temple. The offerings. The incense. The garments. The altar. The laver. The menorah. The table of the bread of the faces. Table of, they call it showbread. All the pictures in Judaism that are in Jerusalem, that is what preaches the gospel and nothing else. Now, let me try to make this make sense, because I just heard myself, I was like, what are you talking about? When I came to the Lord, I was 18, I was young. I came to the Lord in a small Messianic fellowship. The leader of it was an evangelist. He was half Jewish, half Christian. His mom was Christian, his dad was Jewish. And he got born again early, and he went to a Christian Bible college, came back from California, and he started preaching the gospel like a Christian. Then he went to Jerusalem, and he was at the Wailing Wall, if this is to be believed, what I was told. He told me this, he told all of us this, that he went to Jerusalem, he was at the Wailing Wall, and God spoke to him and said, you will no longer, from now on you will reach my people with Yeshua. He says he had never heard the word Yeshua before. He never heard Jesus' name, his real name, which is Yeshua in Hebrew. And so he became pursuing after Jewish things, and he got more and more, quote, Jewish. And he was an evangelist, but he preached a typical, standard Christian gospel with a little bit of Jewish things sprinkled in. I have heard this same approach for now 42 years. And I've heard it all over the world, and I've heard it from hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of Messianic Jews. It's always the same kind of approach. A typical Christian message with a little bit of Judaism sprinkled in. This is upside down and backwards. It's supposed to be pure, unadulterated Judaism, as God gave it, that will show us pure, unadulterated Yeshua. Now this guy, this evangelist, half Jewish, half Christian, I literally heard him, quote, preach about refrigerators. He was talking about refrigerators. And I was like, what is he? What are you saying? And I thought, this is going to be so ineffective to talk to people about Yeshua, the Jewish Jesus, the Jewish Jesus. And it's not going to bring people, and people flocked to Yeshua. And I thought, this is weird. Why is this happening? Well, because he's an evangelist. And he was like a billboard. And the people are like, oh, I can see that. And they go toward it. It's not very deep, but it works. And then I heard him do this many, 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 many more times, where he, very, very shallow message. But my God, did people come to Yeshua through him. It was amazing. I'm like the anti of this, the anti-evangelist. I give all this amazing stuff and people turn and run the other way. And that's the way it's supposed to be, so, oh well. Now, remember, this is a Jewish message from a Jewish God preaching to Jews, because it says, say to the cities of Judah, to the Jews, behold your God. Now, Isaiah 52:7 says this. You're probably familiar with this passage. How beautiful on the mountains, how beautiful on the mountains are the feet of one who brings good news. This is the Mevaser, the gospel. And this is the Mevaseret, the one who brings it. How beautiful are his feet on the mountains, who bring the gospel, who announces shalom, who brings the Mevaser of happiness, who announces Yeshua. That's literally what it says in Hebrew. Who announces salvation. Well, salvation in Hebrew is Yeshua. Who announces Yeshua and says to Zion, not who says to the church, not who says to the world, not who says to pagans, who says to Zion, your God reigns. Okay, this is a very, very Jewish world here. This is an evangelist. So evangelism, true evangelism, is true Judaism. And it's throughout all the other colors. It's supposed to be. All right, the next one, the blue. Techelet is blue. Blue are in the tzitzit. God says to put this blue in the tzitzit, in the fringes. It also was in every thread, all of the beged shesh, all of the garments of the high priest, except for the ketonet, which was all linen. So the techelet is a mussel or a shellfish, the most unkosher critter in the sea. And by the way, the sea is a picture of Gentiles, the most unkosher place there is. And the most unkosher critter in the unkosher place is where the techelet comes from. And this is a picture of the different shells from which it comes. Now this is from a book, I showed you this last week, from Rabbi Isaac Herzog, who is the chief rabbi of Israel. It's a very scholarly book. There's some big words in this book. And it's called The Royal Purple and Biblical Blue. The biblical blue is the techelet, and we're going to talk about the royal purple. And he has pictures in here, and he has all the study and I mean all, of the research that went into rediscovering the techelet and the argaman, which is the purple. Now, the techelet is a mussel or shellfish. It comes from the word tachal, which means to peel. In other words, a shell. You see, these are all shells. These are snails or mollusks. It's gross. And their shell is with the word tachal. It also means to the extremity, like the outside, the very outside of the thing. And so there are words in the Bible, tachal, where the word tachal is used, where it talks about to the extremity. And one of them is where search is made. To the extremity where search is made. Now there's also the word tichla, which is from the same root, tichla, which means perfection or completion. Why completion? Because it's to the end. It's all the way to the end. It means to conclude. It also means hope. Because, you have that thing way off in the distance you're hoping for. It means confidence. Now the word, not techelet, but shechelet, exactly the same, only the first letter is it goes from a tav to a shin, shechelet, which means anika or spice. So also anika in the Bible, one of the spices, came from the shell. And it's from shachal, which means to peel off. Exactly the same thing. Now, which one do you think this is? Which one of the 5 gifts do you think this is? To search to the end. To go to the ends of the earth to search. Like the outer, like the end, the outer thing. The teacher. Because, well, I'm back up. This is what the rabbis say. The rabbis say, why blue in the techelet, in the fringes, the tzitzit? Because the blue looks like and comes from the sea, and the sea looks like the heavens where God lives. So it's a picture of the heavens. Why? Because the sea is blue. Why is it blue? It's reflecting the sky. So the blue, you're wearing a little bit of the sky. You're wearing a little bit of the heavens on you. And what is that? It's in the tzitzit. The tzitzit is the Torah. The Torah. Torah. What does Torah mean? Instruction. Not law, instruction. It is the teaching of God throughout the whole universe. Well, who's that? Who's the one who teaches? Who gives instruction? The teacher. And not only that, they search to the ends of the earth to find something out. They carry around highlighters and pencils and pens and all kinds of doodads, and they carry books around, and they know where to go in the books to find the information. This is a teacher. You know, the people with their nose in the book who know how to search. This is the teacher. This is the techelet. Proverbs 2, 1 through 5 says, treasure my mitzvot within you. Treasure. Make your ear attentive to wisdom. Incline your heart to understanding. If you seek her as silver, and search for her as for hidden treasure. This is not what evangelists do. They don't go, bury themselves in the book to find every tiny little detail of the Hebrew and the Greek and the English and what do things mean, and like this. This is from a teacher. It's got all the Latin terms of the murex, and I don't even know. I'm not good at that sort of thing. I'm not a teacher. But it's got all the details because he searched for it. This is not evangelism. This is the digging in of the Torah to find out God, to find him. This is what a teacher is good at. Seek her, seek wisdom, seek understanding like silver, and search for her as for hidden treasures. Why? Because God hides it. If you don't think God hides his understanding, you're wrong. He does. He buries it deep, and you got to go search for it. This is the most frustrating thing in my life. That it's like, God, why don't you just show me? Just talk to me, tell me, show me. No, you got to do the work to go find it. You have to. I don't care what your gift is, you got to go search for God. It's hard work, and you will find it if you search for it. He'll make it available. So it says you will search for her as hidden treasures. Then you will discern the fear of the Lord and discover the knowledge of God. This is the teacher. The teacher is after knowledge. The teacher wants to know, and they know how to dig to find it. Matthew 13:44, also about the treasure of the Torah. The kingdom of heaven is like a treasure hidden in the field. Why don't you just make it obvious to us? Because you got to dig to find the kingdom. It's like a treasure hidden in the field, which a man found and then went and hid. Isn't that weird? He digs, he finally finds it, goes on a treasure hunt, he finally finds it, and what does he do? He buries it and hides it. But he's hiding it in his heart. He hides it. From joy over it, he sells everything he has, and he goes and he buys that field where it's hidden. All right, this is the Torah. This is the teacher, the instructor who gives instruction and who knows how to find the information. This is the techelet, the instruction, the Torah of God. I think that's cool. I didn't expect that. I thought it would be the apostle, but it's not. It's the teacher. Now, the purple. This is also from the same book. Looks totally different, this shell. Look at how it's mounded up. Much more than the other shells for the techelet. It's mounded up like a pile. And that's exactly what it means in Hebrew. Argaman means a rigid or pointed mussel or shellfish. And it comes from ragam, which means to heap up. Isn't that cool? So you can literally see the heap, the piling up in the name of this shell. To heap up. Now, this is where it gets strange. To bring together. Okay, I get that. It kind of comes together. To join together. Now it's kind of getting weird. To befriend. What? To befriend? I don't get it. How do we go from heaping up to befriend? Because the word regem, which is the same word, ragam means to heap up, regem means a friend. Isn't that strange? Why? Because it's bringing stuff together. It's bringing people together. Now, if you can't figure out which one of the gifts this is, if you've heard my teachings, then you got to think a little harder. You're not really thinking. This one's so obvious. Now, if you don't know this stuff, if you don't know about the gifts, that's fine. You can go get the book, you can go get the teachings, and you can find out. One of the gifts literally means a friend. And it's the pastor. The pastor who brings people together and befriends people. This is the purple. Purple is the pastor. This one's easy to remember because they both start with P. Purple is the pastor. Purple is our friendship, our unity. Remember, this is what Yeshua is clothed in. Yeshua is clothed in that gold that goes through all of them, all the garments, clothed in the teacher, the Torah, the instruction. He's clothed in all the teachers out there searching for his kingdom, and he's clothed in the pastors. He's clothed in our friendship, our unity, and God as our shepherd. That's what this is. This is God as our shepherd. But he's clothed in us, and he's clothed in the pastors. How? So again, if you're picturing Christian pastors on the radio or Christian pastors, they're usually not Christian pastors on the radio. Those are usually evangelists or teachers. But if you're picturing Christian pastors on the TV, which there are a few, you're thinking wrong. This is Jewish. What is it in Judaism? What's a pastor in Judaism? Now, Isaiah 63, 11 through 12 talks about this. It says, then his people remembered the days of old of Moses. I bet you don't picture Moses like a shepherd, like a pastor. You probably picture him like what's his name? Charlton Heston. And I say to you, that's not a pastor. He was a pastor. It says he was the most humble person on earth. Well, pastors are usually like that. They're very quiet, they're humble, they're broken, they know the pain of other people. They can feel the pain of other people. And this was Moshe. Moshe, by the way, was all the gifts. He was a picture of all the gifts, and he was also a picture of a pastor. I think ultimately, as in his heart, like as a person, I believe he was a pastor, a shepherd, because he was the most humble person on earth. Then his people remembered the days of old, of Moses. Where is he who brought them up out of the sea with the shepherds of his flock? Where is he who put his Holy Spirit inside them? Betochem, in the midst of them, inside them. Who caused his glorious arm to go at the right hand of Moshe. Now in Judaism, in Aramaic, there's a phrase for Moshe, and it's called Rea Mehemna. This is Aramaic, it's not Hebrew. Rea Mehemna, and it literally means the faithful shepherd. Rea, shepherd, Mehemna, faith, faithful. Because he was the faithful shepherd. He wasn't like a Christian pastor at all. He was, Moshe Rabbeinu. He was our high one, our great teacher, our great one, our teacher, Moses. Moshe Rabbeinu. And he was our pastor. He is our pastor. Whether you're a believer in Yeshua or not, he is our pastor. And he is the ultimate picture of Yeshua, our shepherd, who is the ultimate shepherd. In Jeremiah 3:5 it says, then I will give you, who's you? Israel. Israel, I will give you shepherds after my own heart, who will feed you on knowledge and understanding. In John 10, Yeshua, I just put 10 here because there's many, many phrases in John 10 where Yeshua describes and quotes the Tanakh about God as a shepherd and about Israel as shepherds. He says, I am the good shepherd. I'm the Re'ah Tov. And the good shepherd lays down his life for the sheep. This is Moshe. This is Yeshua. So this is we're only unified if somebody unifies us. You know this. It takes somebody to unify people because we don't unify. We just don't. We don't on our own unify with anybody. We avoid everybody unless they want to follow us and, be one of our peeps. We don't unify, we divide. We criticize, we mock, we hate, we slander, we do lashon hara and hurt other people. We don't unify with other people, but the shepherd does. The shepherd heaps people up together to make that beautiful purple color. And that's interwoven in Yeshua's garments, and so Yeshua is clothed with the shepherds, with the pastors. And remember, every believer has one of these gifts. Every believer. All right, look at this one. Scarlet, tol'ah, which means a worm or a maggot. You're a worm or a maggot if you're this gift. That sounds horrible. Except it comes from yalla. Yalla. By the way, in Arabic, they'll say many times, they'll say yalla, yalla, which means go, run. Different word. This yalla means to talk or to talk wildly or rashly. Who is that? To blurt out. Everybody knows who that is. That's the prophet. The one who's always yapping. The one who's always saying weird stuff. The one who always says all this bizarre stuff. You can't shut them up because they're talking strange and wildly. There's a passage in Samuel where David is fleeing from Saul, and he goes to the Philistine king of Gerar, and he scratches. I don't know what that means. He scratches on the doors of the gates, and he lets spit go into his beard, and he talks all his nonsense. He talks crazy. And the king of Gerar says, "What do I need, more madmen in my palace? You bring me this guy? I don't need this. Get rid of him." And then they form a huge friendship, David and the king of Gerar. And then it says in Revelation, I believe it is. No, it's in James, I believe. It's talking about Balaam, the prophet Balaam, and it says that the donkey restrained the madness, the insanity of the prophet. Why? Because prophets look nuts. They sound nuts. I had a dream, and I saw a stork, and it came and it picked you up, and it took you to a puddle of lava, and in this lava there was a hand that came forth. I mean, they just say the weirdest stuff. I know, because I'm married to one. And they're amazing. They go places that I can't go. Where they go is the kingdom. And all prophets go to the kingdom, and it looks weird. God's vocabulary is weird because it's all pictures, it's all metaphors. And prophets speak in this weird, mystical, metaphorical language. That's why they sound so weird. But they're a worm. The worm, tol'ah, the scarlet, comes from crushing the worm. And it produces this beautiful red scarlet dye. It has to be crushed. Well, where in the Bible are the Jews called worms as prophets? Now, I'm going to say something that you're probably not going to like. I've said that, I think I said it last week, that Christians love to quote this verse that says, don't touch my anointed and do my prophets no harm. This is talking about Israel when they came out of Egypt. It's only talking about Israel. Now, if Gentiles come to the Jewish Messiah in a Jewish world, and they're filled with the Holy Spirit, and they start learning about God through Judaism, fabulous. Fabulous. Welcome to our world. But if it distances itself, the message and the understanding distances itself from Judaism, it is not the right message. Doesn't mean they're not born again. Doesn't mean they're not filled with the Spirit. It just means that they're not coming to know God through the way that He gave and in a clear and concise and pristine understanding of the way He gave it and what we're supposed to understand. They've got a wrong understanding. And this is the same way. Israel is God's prophets. Period. Now that doesn't mean if you're Jewish you're a prophet. It means if you're Jewish you're a prophet. It doesn't mean you're the gift of the prophet. It just means that God made us prophets and anointed. And he tells the world, don't you dare touch my prophets. They speak for me. They know me. They see the Jewish world, which is the spiritual world, and they tell people about it. Okay. So that's why God says, don't touch my prophets and do my anointed no harm. So where does it say that the prophets are a worm? Numbers, I'm sorry, it's in Isaiah. It's the last one. We'll look at these first two verses first. Numbers 12 and then Amos 3. If there's, Numbers 12, if there's among you a prophet, I, the Lord, will make myself known to him in a vision. I'll speak to him in a dream. And his point here in Numbers 12 was, ain't nobody like Moses. I don't talk to him like a regular prophet. I talk to him face to face. But every other prophet, forever, I give him a vision or I give him a dream. Now, what is the red? The red throughout the garment is the spirit of prophecy that sees and acts out the spiritual realm. Prophets don't just see weird stuff and talk weird stuff. They act out weird stuff because God makes them act out weird stuff. And again, if you're unfamiliar with this, I would suggest you get the teaching or watch and listen to the teaching that I gave on the prophet in the Counting of the Omer series. You can find that on YouTube under the Lev Tzion channel in the Counting of the Omer series, the prophet. So he gives them a dream or a vision. It's very weird. It's another world that they live in. Now, Amos chapter 3:7 says God does nothing unless he first reveals it to his prophets. That's a big statement. That God doesn't do anything on the planet with anybody unless he first reveals it, shows it to the prophets. Okay? Now, where does it say that the prophet who sees all this weird stuff and speaks all this gibberish is a worm? Isaiah 41:14. Don't be afraid, you worm, Jacob. There it is. Tol'ah, Yaakov. Well, who's Jacob? Jacob is Israel. They're the same guy. Israel is my prophets. If you want to know God, go to Israel. And I don't mean, the nation, the land, although I do mean the nation, the land. I mean the people. I mean the culture. I mean the things that God gave to the Jews. That's Israel. That's Jacob. That's the 12 tribes. That's Israel. So if you want to know God, go there. And you'll see, and they'll talk, and they'll tell you about God. You may not like it, but they'll tell you. Don't fear, you worm Jacob, you people Israel. I will help you. And your Redeemer is the Holy One of Israel. So, I thought this was strange. That's a strange thing to call a prophet a worm. Call Jacob a worm, but it's really important. It's really important. Why? Because Moses was the most humble person on earth. That's why. And Moses, our rabbi, he modeled for us, and then Yeshua modeled for us how to be. And that's low. Anava. Low. Humble. And that's like a worm. Where's a worm? Worm's in the ground. Slithers around. And, you got to dig it up from the ground. It's in the ground. It's low as you can get. It doesn't have any arms, doesn't have any legs, doesn't have a brain. It's just like a little slithering thing. Not even like a snake. At least a snake is called like shrewd, and it knows how to get around. Not a worm. A worm's just like in the ground. And that's how we're supposed to be. That's how Israel's supposed to be. That's how we're supposed to be. So it's not a horrible thing. By the way, there's other verses that use the same word, tolah, and it's a maggot because it lives in dead stuff. So, we think of these things as disgusting, but they're a good picture of how we're supposed to be, low. So, this is what Yeshua has clothed himself with. He's clothed himself with the evangelist in the gold that's in all the other colors. He's clothed himself with the techelet, which is the teacher, which is a picture of heaven. It's the Torah. And he's clothed himself with the argaman, with the pastor, which brings unity, heaps up people together and befriends, knows how to feel other people's pain. And now, the scarlet, the red, which is the prophet. This is what Yeshua has clothed himself with. The eyeballs. That's what a prophet is the eyeballs of the body, but it's also the speaker, the talker. And now the linen, the shesh. It literally means bleach stuff, to whiten. It comes from the word shish or shayish, and it means to whiten. It means white marble. Now the word shush means a lily. Why? Because a lily is white, so it's white lily-like. It's also the name of Shushan, which is today and yesterday we read the story of Esther, which takes place in the city of Shushan, and which is in Persia, modern-day Iran, and it means from Shasha, which means to lead. What? To lead. Like a ladder going up to traverse countries, to walk or go about. What? How did we get from white to leading, ladder-like leading, to walk, to traverse country? How did we get there? That was a quick switch. That's what it is, though. Shushan is lily-like or white. And Shasha, which is a related word, and when I say related, I mean related like intertwined that you can't get to separate. To lead, like a ladder going up to traverse countries, to walk or go about. Well, who's that? Who traverses countries to get from point A to point B? Who walks? Who goes around? Who moves? Who goes? That's the shaliach, the sent one, the apostle. This one, I was like, bleach stuff, white marble, lily. Where is this going? This can't match. And then all of a sudden it says to lead like a ladder to traverse countries. Oh my God, that's an ambassador. That's so clear. It kind of freaked me out. So, I mean, all five fit, in my view. All five words fit perfectly. So the white linen is the apostle. And remember, this is like the basic thing, which is garments, which all of them have the white linen. All of them, all the garments, all beged shesh have this white linen. It's in all, but then the gold is in all the garments, all the colors, right? It's in the threads of all the colors. But the linen, the shesh, is the foundation of the whole concept. So that's why, it's foundational. That's what apostles are. They're the foundation. Now, I don't know what you picture in your mind for apostle, but don't. It's probably wrong. An apostle in Judaism is not like in the movies, the apostle. It's just somebody who's sent out. They get from point A to point B. That's all they care about. The word, you can see a picture of an arrow, a bow and an arrow here. Why? Because the word arrow is the same word, to send out. To send out. Shaliach. It's an arrow. It's a dart. It's a spear. It just gets from point A to point B. That's what an apostle is. So what is the white linen? The white linen is righteousness. I'll show you this. And it's sent to spread the clean doctrines. This is the one thing that people hate about me the most. That I, as an apostle, if you get the book or you read the teachings, listen to the video, watch the video about the apostle, you'll understand this. that there's these processes to make the grain ready to turn it into flour, to offer the flour to God, and the last one is the apostle, and it's sifting. It goes through 11 sieves that get tighter and tighter and tighter and tighter until it's absolutely perfect. This is my job. I don't allow people to give wrong doctrine around me. And it just irritates me, it grates on me. And then I go, and I try to be really nice about it, but it doesn't matter how nice about it, I'm telling you, you're wrong. And nobody likes that, so they jump on me. But whatever, I'm still gonna do it. It's my job, it's how I feel inside. I need there to be pure, white doctrine. It's just, I'm driven. There are people like that. I'm not the only one. They're driven to have pure doctrine. This is the apostle. That linen is shesh. It's white. It's lily-like. It's like marble, like white marble. And you get a little bit of dirt on it, and we got to get rid of that. That's how the apostle is. We've got to clean it up. So, if you talk to me, or if we write to each other, we talk to each other, please don't get offended if I say, well, that's not right. The proper doctrine is, and that's how I'll do it. I won't do it like the way I used to. You're wrong. That's how I used to do it. I don't do it like that anymore. Now I'm nicer, I'm kinder, but it still doesn't matter. People still don't like it. It happened to me a couple weeks ago. I was so nice. I was just so nice. It was unfortunately written, and in email you can't tell how somebody's talking. And the person got so offended. And I was, I thought I was being super nice. But anyway, this is what happens. When you're wrong, and you're told you're wrong, get your pride out of the way and clean it up. Just clean it up. That's all you got to do. So in 2 Chronicles 17, 6 through 9, this is talking about apostles. Jewish apostles. So you got to replace the way you think of an apostle with something. So here, maybe this will help you. In the 3rd year of Yehoshaphat's reign, he sent his officials, Ben Chayil, Ovadiah, Zechariah, to teach in the cities of Judah. That's the Jews. And with them, the Levites and the priests. So he sent, Shalach, his officials who taught, they were teachers, and they were Levites, and they were priests, and they're apostles sent. And they're teaching in the cities of Judah. And with them, the Levites and the priests, and they taught in Judah, having the Torah scroll. They taught strictly Judaism. And they went throughout all the cities of Judah and taught among the people. Isn't that beautiful? I mean, that's fantastic. These are apostles, and all they did was go out and teach Jews Judaism. That's the apostle. And they're priests, and they're Levites, and they're officials. All right. Now in Revelation 19, 7 through 8, talking about the bisus, which is in Greek for the shesh. Bisus is Greek, shesh is Hebrew, and the shesh, the white bleach stuff, is righteousness. Let's rejoice and be glad and give glory to him, because the marriage of the Lamb has come, and his bride has prepared herself. It was given to her, to the bride, to clothe herself in fine what's a woman, a bride, a girl, wearing, why is she wearing the beged shesh? Why is she wearing the beged shesh? Because she's in heaven. And she's clothed Yeshua, and Yeshua is clothed her. They're clothed in each other. She's wearing the fine linen, the beged shesh, bright and clean. For why? Because the beged shesh, the fine linen, is the righteous acts of the holy ones. Abraham, Isaac, Jacob. I bet you thought Christians, didn't you? No. It's the holy ones, all the holy ones, from the beginning, from Abraham on. And probably before that, Enoch, Job, Job was before Abraham. Enoch and Job and maybe Adam, I don't know. So all the righteous acts of the holy ones, all the holy ones, is the Beged Shesh. And that's what Yeshua is clothed in. He's clothed in us. And by the way, the apostle, the prophet, the evangelist, the pastor, the teacher, that was since Adam. This is not some new thing. This is how God creates human beings. You shall make holy garments for Aaron, your brother, for glory and for beauty. Yeshua is clothed in his glory and his beauty, which is us, his bride. You shall speak to all the Ruach Lev, the spirit hearts, who can see the pictures of spiritual things. And that's why they're Ruach heart. Because they can see the pictures. They can see the heavens. And they can see how to make it on earth. So there's a model. That's Judaism. Whom I have endowed with the Ruach Chochmah, that they may make Aaron's garments to consecrate him, so that he can serve as priest to me. And it says in Exodus 19, you shall be a kingdom of priests. Kingdom of priests. Kingdom, king of priests. A priest king. You shall be a king priest, like Yeshua is a king priest. In other words, we're clothed in him. He's clothed in us. We're both king priests, him and us. These are the garments which they shall make: a breastpiece, an ephod, a me'il, a ketonet, a mitznefet, turban, and an avnet, a sash. The gold is the evangelists. The blue are the teachers. The purple are the pastors. The scarlet are the prophets. And the fine linen are the apostles. And that's what Yeshua is clothed in. We're clothed in him, and he's clothed in us. We're clothed in each other. Shabbat Shalom.